I didn't know whether I was gonna make it or not as a filmmaker. And I just remember this one day I just sat down and I had this journal on me. And I remember I wrote this one journal. And that exact same entry, I was praying out loud just because nothing was working. In the middle of 2023, I wrote a short film. I ended up writing this short film about a character who was going through the exact same thing that I was going through, named Peter Cercis. The story kind of followed him, going through writer's block in the past few months, and he didn't know how to get over it. So his thoughts would bombard him and drive him crazy and shit like that, until he would finally get over it by the end and recognize that, he'll be good enough to write again, and he'll just get out there and make his own story, and it'll do really well, whatever. And I knew I wanted it to be about writer's block and him going through that writer's block, but I also knew that I wanted maybe something more in it that wasn't just him going through the writer's block. Maybe I could create another character of some sort that I could play both of them. And I started to think about those old Boomerang cartoons, when you catch on cable at like 5 p.m. when Tom and Jerry and the Jetsons and all the shit like that came on. And I remember that little trope of when the main character is trying to decide whether to go through with this big action. Sometimes they'll have an angel or a devil on their shoulders, and they'll both try to butt heads with each other and try to talk back and convince the main character whether to go through with those actions or not. And I thought it was silly, but I thought it was cool. So I was like, you know what, maybe this story should have that element. So I decided that would be the kind of draw of it, that I'll be, playing these both characters so that Peter's thoughts could be personified by that human version of the negative emotions and like the internal feelings that we all have when you're just not good enough. You think you're hot shit, but you haven't done shit in months. Like that kind of energy. I kind of personified that, just what I was feeling. And then the regular Peter, he was just going through that depression, So I took about a month to write it. I started to look up these videos on how to make a short film and stuff like that. And I just noted down every single thing, whether that thing was actually important or not. And I remember the first thing that I ended up making for it was this thing called a treatment in your pitch deck, and I made a plot synopsis. It's like this big summary of what your film is about. So I made this pitch synopsis, and then on my treatment I had a link to the pitch synopsis, and then under that, on the actual treatment, I had a film synopsis. And it just, it was just super crazy and convoluted. I was like, yeah, this is gonna show people I'm official. And I said everything on there, the references in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. This is what I want the film to look like. And then I got to work on my my storyboard, and I'm kind of shit ass at drawing, right? So I just made these little stick men on the different slides, and I printed out, put them all in my folder that I had for everything in the short film. And then I kind of just drew like little stick men and how exactly I wanted them to look and be placed. But I'm not gonna lie, I started getting really lazy with it after like the first page, so I just kind of like drew them as fast as I could. And I didn't understand, like, bro, you need to make these shots look nice and legible on the page so that when you go out and shoot it, you know what you need to be shooting in detail. And then from there I made this shot list. I showed it to a couple people and they thought it was cool, and then I wrote the script. I don't know why, but like a lot of my projects, my short films seem to have these biblical ties.
The time has come for you to go and do the things which you have seen me do. I have given you power to cast out unclean spirits and to heal all manner of sickness and disease, even to raise the dead. Remember, all things are possible to him who believes.
I kind of like to compare and contrast what those characters in the Bible and religious figures went through, and if my main characters kind of match or are going through that same kind of process, then I might give them that same name or just try to reference it and tie them both together, which is why Joseph has that name in the first place, as well as Peter. because Joseph, people think is the main character's name, but no, it's more hidden than that. Joseph is actually the name of the writer that Peter, the main character in the story, is writing about. The original script was a lot darker. I didn't know whether I was gonna make it or not as a filmmaker. I remember I just sat on the script for like months. The rough script for it, the more violent and potent one, I just sat on it for like the longest time. And I remember I got a little crew put together after trying to previously put it together. Didn't get to go the way that I wanted it to. And I got a location for it, and I had equipment that I was renting, and I was working with a crew for the first time, so I had to, that's when I kind of redid the whole entire script to be something easier and more up to date, which is where the script that we see throughout the final film come in. I redid the storyboard with like actual pens, and then, oh my god, I had to buy a whole studio binder subscription just to make the call sheet. I hate making call sheets, bro. I remember we ended up doing one shoot for that initial version, and then shit just kind of didn't go the way, and everybody on the crew kind of got busy with their own things, and they just didn't have the capacity to shoot the rest, and it really discouraged me. And over the next months, that kind of set me into this worse hole than I was in before, because it was like, bro, I was so close to finishing it. Yeah, just over those next couple months, I was just sitting on that script and that footage that we had from the first day. But I kind of just held it down. And I remember my dad one day, he came into the room and he just let me know. He was like, hey son, if you ever want to shoot a short film or something like that you get that you're working on, you could shoot it at my shop, you know, upstairs, because we have a vacant room. So I remember I thought on it. I just kept thinking about it over the next week, and eventually I came to this decision, like, if it's gonna get done, despite everything that's happened or I can complain about, and because not everything is super lined up or perfect or ready, I just had to kind of like push it through and just say, like, you know, fuck it, do it myself. And that was kind of the moment when everything fell into place. That very next week, I did the whole entire shoot for the whole entire film. I redeveloped the storyboard. I was getting my things ready and telling myself what equipment that I needed and getting myself prepped. Big day. So my light kit, or my light came in. My first light, my first real light, small rig. I just gotta buy a C-stand for it. Got my tripod. Oh yeah, I bought a haze machine. I accidentally bought fog juice first, so I bought haze after, but man, this is it. It's the start of the film, of the lighting set, let's say, because I already got a tripod and the rest of the shit, but it's coming together, man. It's slowly coming together. Let's get it. I gave myself this $300 budget, and I remember I went to like the freaking nearest Walgreens or Longs that I had close to my house, and then I just bought every single cheap journal and paper, and I even bought this leather journal and like just stacks of paper on paper, and posted for set design too, and put all this different stuff on the wall and just make sure that everything looks good and you know. Every shoot day was like an hour of setting up and trying different angles to see what would work, and then about 20 minutes of shooting. Day 3, Joseph's clarity. Yee. This is second to last day, guys. We got this. Joseph's clarity. Day 6. Major success. I had this rough idea on like how I wanted the lights to look, but from my time of learning lighting, I only knew, like, you know, the basic 3-point lighting. And I just tried my best to light with these 2 lights that I had on me to make kind of like a 2-point lighting, I guess. Well, the idea initially was that the blue lighting would match Peter's depression, his anxiety, his just that whole blue mood of, you know, that inescapable feeling. I tried to trap it in that color. And then the red was obviously the evil Peter, the alternate Peter. But then in the room, if you'd ever see a hint of orange or that sunlight coming in, the more orange that shows on Peter, the more happy he is, the more he's pulling himself out of that hole. And by the end of the film, after he's made that poem and that letter to himself, some people will notice that the orange light is finally fully shining through and there's no blue anymore. And I was just so happy I could nail that shot, man. Because when I ended up screening it, that was the #1 thing that people noticed the most. And I remember on the 3rd shoot day, My fucking braids were falling out, bro, and I was panicking. I was like, continuity. It didn't make sense how some shots I would have braids in my hair, then in other shots, like only 2 minutes later in the film, they would be all falling apart and my hairstyle would just look completely different. And I remember I brought a bottle of gel with me and I just wet my hair like as much as I could and then gelled it and then combed it back to make it look like it was still being held back or tied back like braids. And I just kind of kept it like that for the rest of the time I was shooting, but I just kind of tried to meticulously work through all these shots over the next few days. And this is the pre-production process, ladies and gentlemen, before it turns into something like this.
Hell yeah, I can do anything. I can do anything.
Yeah, it ended up getting done, and just all with experimenting with my lighting and hoping for the best that it would work out. I remember as soon as I finished making the film, I told myself as a reward for making my first narrative short, I got this whole list of tats that I want to get later on in the future when I like got enough money to get everything, that I would get something off of that list or a couple things. So I was like, oh hell yeah. Mac Miller, he's my favorite artist of all time. I got like 2 tats dedicated to him and to XXXTentacion. He's one of my other favorite artists. Mac, on his left and his right hand, on his left he got this heart tattoo to represent, like, you know, love and whatever, and then the other side he has a peace sign on the same exact placement. So I decided that for me, that I wanted a tribute to Mac in terms of my placement, so I got the exact same tat on my left. And then X's iconic tattoo and kind of symbol was the broken heart, so they would both mirror being my favorite artists. And I decided to make the X one blue because, you know, red and blue. Red Dead Redemption 2 is my favorite game of all time, and for the longest time I wanted the cores, the 3 cores on my right wrist to represent health, stamina, and deadeye. So I got that too. I got all 3 on that day. Like, I get like the craziest divine timing or coincidences or whatever you want to call them. Cause tell me why I didn't even clock that the red and blue in those hearts, in those 2 hearts, represent the same red and blue colors and emotions from Joseph's Clarity. Tell me why I didn't realize that shit after I got the tat, bro. That's like the universe, God was looking out for me type shit. That was crazy. And editing time came.
Fucking beautiful. Look at that. Look at that, mate. It's also an example on how not to do motivational light. Because this is definitely not motivated light.
Which happened like a few days later. Up to that point, I never color graded anything by myself before. I always looked at it on my editing software, and I was just super scared of it because it looks scary, you know. You look at the DaVinci Resolve color wheel and you think that you're looking at a fucking astronaut spaceship for the first time. But that fell into place too, because I found a tutorial where I learned how to color correct my skin tones and then convert to Rec 709 and blah blah. Anyway, all this coloring, I learned right there how to color grade for the first time, when all these years I was putting it off and waiting for a mentor to come by and teach me. But throwing myself in the fire that one night taught me more that I could learn in all of those years combined that I was putting everything off. And that changed my mentality and how I worked in film forever. Oh my god. I finally did it, guys. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of hard work. My first narrative, Joseph's Clarity. Anybody can do it. Then I figured out how to get it into film festivals. I spent a lot of time and got a lot of help with building my strategy, figuring out what festivals I want to submit to and why, and just how the whole process works. Because I knew jack shit about film festivals before. And I think I submitted to like at least 10 or 11 film festivals. And I got into this one.
Let's fucking go, bro. Joseph's Clarity, first time filmmaker sessions.
Oh, let's fucking go, bro. Fuck yes.
Let's fucking go, dog. Oh shit.
First time filmmaking, bitch. I got a poster design for it. I remember I was sitting on this concept, a fucking shitty sketch of the 2 sitting away from each other, and it would be a top-down view. I found this one dude who ended up doing the poster, And I remember he asked me to send him a reference, and I was like, I don't know, man, my drawing skills are kind of ass. And he was like, no, send it over. I sent it over to him, and the fucker came back with the audacity to say this. But yeah, the poster ended up getting made with that exact concept that I wanted for the longest time, bro. And it took, it went through different drafts. I think we had like 7 of them. And we finally got it to be the exact way and concept that I was thinking about. I got it finished with putting the laurels on there, and it just, it just turned out super sick. And everything came together to be this film. And at the end of the film, Joseph, through Peter's trauma and that kind of journal and prayer thing that I wrote and took from my journal and put into the film, so that praying out loud scene that Peter does towards the end to try and call out like for God.
Honestly, I'm praying out loud. I don't even know if I'm talking to anybody right now, but if you really are all powerful, and if you can see anything that can change in me, if you can bring me to peace with all this and help, I'll try to keep my faith in you. I'm sorry. This is all I want. Clarity. Amen.
Was my actual journal entry that I was praying into and thinking into and just writing on. Joseph kind of used to be his strength. I think I realized that people want characters to relate to. They want people. Drama thrives on chemistry. It thrives on the human emotion and the fact that people are in the gray. We were never born all good or all bad, and I don't believe that anything should be portrayed in media as all good or all bad, whether it's a culture or religion or a lack of. We're all going through our own character development, and with that note that I put on at the end, it was something that Peter realized in the story to himself that it was important in the story, but only now it started to make sense, because when he was thinking out loud and he was being vulnerable for the first time in months and thinking about that prayer and just praying out loud about looking for solace, and he realized that same vulnerability that he was feeling, he could put and infuse into his own story.
This is all I want. Clarity. Amen.
As much as you can, put your pain and every emotion that you're feeling into your art, because every emotion that you feel does have a use. If you're happy, you can make a happy story. If you're sad, you can make a sad one. If you're going through depression and you can't muster up any feelings to write, then make a little journal on how you're feeling at that time, and then try and just go through those emotions so that one day you can come back to that note that you made. And then if you want to make a story relating to that emotion that you felt, then you can pull from that journal with the emotions that you were feeling and those times that you were in. It's in that mental health kind of atmosphere, about getting over not just writer's block, but getting over anxiety and a depressive state overall. Having to learn and accept that your negative sides are just part of yourself. There's no yin without the yang. There's no love without any heartbreaks, as you can see on both of my hands. No. But yeah, I was just so grateful I could make this first piece work entirely by myself, just because I found out that there are no handouts in this industry, that life has no handouts. If you want to go out there and make your shit, you got to go out there and make your shit before people start gravitating towards you and want to help you. Then you'll find clarity. Thank you.